Unit 7, first video and the only video. Required readings are Idelson's chapter 21 and 22. You read them once before, but now they're short and you should benefit from rereading them. And chapter 12 in Dennis Young's book. In this unit, we consider some pitfalls, problems, and challenges nonprofit managers will encounter. I know you've seen this diagram many times in your nonprofit management courses. Here it has a special meaning because it suggests both the overlap and the separateness of financial management principles and practices between the various institutional forms. Simply, financial management of nonprofit organizations shares some characteristics with financial management in business and government, but not all. And enough is different to merit a special treatment in the lessons of this course. For example, there are some common themes across the sectors. First is accountability, but nonprofits are obligated to speak to the other sectors using terms, forms, and concepts that are standard to them. Second, aspects of each are unique. Nonprofits receive funds in ways that are atypical for public and private sector actors. The most obvious being contributions and philanthropy as a regular revenue source. And you'll also recall we talked about the U-bit in our previous unit, which is one of those concepts along the boundary of the nonprofit sector with the other two. And then the third common theme is outputs and outcomes. Nonprofits are expected to perform functions for their funding that neither government nor business typically perform, but they may do in a secondary fashion or somewhere down the road. Social enterprise is one of those concepts along the boundary between the two sectors too. So all this to say, approaches to nonprofit financial management are practiced within a larger societal context, and nonprofit decision-making must take into account the principles and practices of all three sectors. So it comes as no surprise that strategic financial planning is essential. Planning does not come natural to me. I have this compulsion to just get on with it. Unfortunately, as a nonprofit manager, I've had enough bad things happen over the years so that I'm really a convert to the concept of planning. The big aha came with the sense that when I decide something alone in my office, few, if any, other stakeholders will support those decisions. And when I get into trouble or unanticipated conditions arise, which typically happens, no one's available to rescue me. This last slide is a bit of a jumble because they're pretty much one-off concepts, each of which is worthy of its own long instructional video. But the ideas are singular, and I'm thinking just as a list, it's the clearest way to present and quickest way to convey the ideas. And if you have any questions or comments about the bullets on this list, send me a direct message, post it to Blackboard, and I'll clarify. We might have a great discussion about them. So it's wise to recognize that for nonprofits, success or failure is a group endeavor, and it's organizational wide. Consequently, it's especially necessary to share your financial management ideas with board members and other stakeholders, particularly if their involvement and consent is needed down the road. The aspect of planning, which is seldom mentioned, though, that is that implementing the plans that you have requires steady adjustment for unanticipated circumstances, errors in planning assumptions, and to accommodate for changing conditions. Therefore, it's really not a failure to have to deviate from your plan, but it is a failure if that deviation occurs without explanation and an understanding of why a plan must be changed. Along those lines, I've written about workarounds in management. In my opinion, that's one of those practical applications that scholars and rule makers abhor, but it's essential. I think a workaround demonstrates that your initial assumptions were incorrect, or that something's changed and it requires an adjustment. On the one hand, people that monitor performance look at workarounds as bad. They'll say that you're skirting the rules and it's a signal of incompetence or dishonesty. On the other hand, as I just mentioned, a workaround might be a signal that a performance measure or a rule of operations is incorrect, obsolete, or in need of innovation. In any event, it's important for nonprofit financial managers to monitor and control their operations so that expenses and revenues flow through the nonprofit in a way that is best explainable to others. And the readings for this week, I think, speak to some of the challenges nonprofit leaders and managers will face and encounter. And I think the best run nonprofit organizations are able to understand the conditions that the barriers describe. And I look forward to seeing your papers.